Hey guys, tonight we're travelling to a time when even the wind seemed to carry whispers of doom. Back to the first faint signs of something so silent and terrifying. Most people ignored it until it knocked on their door. You're going to live through it. Well, for a while anyway. You're curled beneath a wool blanket, fire down to its last glowing coals. Outside your window, the breeze rustles the shutters. Not cold, just wrong. A kind of damp, rotten tang clings to the night air, like garlic left in milk. You try not to breathe too deeply. It doesn't help. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop your location and local time in the comments. I want to know where and when you're hiding with me tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stir awake at dawn to something odd. Not sound, not light, smell. A sharp, sour odour lingers in your nose. It reminds you of overripe figs mixed with something like wet dog and iron. Your brain tries to place it, fails, and gives up by sending a twitch through your jaw. Whatever it is, it wasn't there yesterday. The neighbours' pigs are squealing again. They've been jumpy all week, and now they're digging furiously in the muck trying to get at something under the compost heap. You can hear the wet slap of hooves in the mud, the slurp of suctioned earth. It's far too early for this. You head to the well for water, and the smell intensifies. The rope's gone slick. Someone left it resting in something oily and dark. You draw the bucket up fast, trying not to let it spill on your shoes. The water is clear, but faintly cloudy, like breath on glass. You hesitate. Then you drink it anyway, because honestly, what else are you going to do? Back in your cottage, your younger brother's been up all night carving tiny animal bones. He calls them plague charms. You laugh, but he doesn't. Says he dreamed a woman in black gave him the idea. Kids are weird, but that's weirder. Later that day, you pass the market square and it's half empty. A linen seller's draping her cloths over crates like they're coffins. A butcher's tossing meat to a group of street cats, muttering something about meat that wouldn't salt right. You avoid eye contact. Everyone's doing that lately. Less talk, more glances. Everyone knows something. But no one wants to be the first to say it out loud. Historians still argue whether the plague truly began in the East months earlier, or if it slithered ashore here the moment that ship anchored. But here's what's certain. The signs were always there. Just ask the cats. That night the smell gets stronger. It creeps beneath your door. Someone down the road screams, short and sudden like a kettle being kicked. You freeze, then blow out your candle. Darkness feels safer. The next morning, your favourite baker, old Toma, isn't at his stall. He never misses a morning. You poke your head into his shop just for a peek and gag instantly. The flour sacks are burst open, mice gnawed through them. Toma's dog paces back and forth, nose low, tail down. You back out slowly. One odd thing, your skin itches. Not a lot. Just little prickles on your arms, neck, behind your knees. Could be fleas. Could be nothing. You convince yourself it's just your imagination, spun wild by fear and bad smells. And here's the thing. People have lived through bad smells before. Your towns had sickness before. There was the water rot of 21 and the gut cough 2 winters ago. People died, yes, but others lived. Life went on. The trouble now is the birds. They aren't singing. No dawn chorus. No sparrows scolding you from the eaves. Even the pigeons seem shy. It's as if nature itself is holding its breath. You pause near the apothecary's door, curious, and catch sight of a man arguing loudly with the owner. "You said the vinegar would work," he shouts, spittle flying. The apothecary shrugs. "Maybe it kept you alive this long." The man pulls something from his coat, a stained kerchief, and throws it on the ground. It sticks to the stone with a wet slap. You start walking faster. The last thing you notice that day is a chalk drawing on a wall by the baker's, scrawled low, at child height. A stick figure with a big head and what looks like bugs all around it. You smile faintly. Kids always turn fear into cartoons. It's how they cope. You wish you had something that simple. Because here's a fun, disturbing fact. Before science ever caught up, people thought plague came from bad air, evil spirits, or even comet dust. One theory? That it arrived on a foul wind and entered your lungs while you slept. Sleep tight. Back at home, you push your bed against the door just in case and try to rest. Your dreams are dark, jumbled. Something about ships, bells, and a rat chewing through your pillow. Outside, the wind changes direction. You wake to shouting from the docks. Now, your town isn't exactly known for noise. Morning usually starts with the slow creak of carts and the occasional overly enthusiastic rooster. But this is full-on chaos. You throw on your cloak, stick a bit of hard bread in your mouth and jog down the muddy lanes. When you reach the harbour, the smell hits first. Again. Like someone boiled seawater with old teeth and a dash of despair. And then you see it. A ship. A small merchant cog. Grey sails drooping, moored not to the dock but drifting a few feet off it. No flag, no name. Just swaying gently like it's dozing. Except no crew. Not on deck. Not shouting instructions. Not tossing ropes. Nothing. A fisherman stands knee-deep in the shallows, pole raised like a spear. "It came in with the tide," he mutters to no one in particular. No one touched it, no oars, no anchor. You squint, trying to make out movement, any movement, but all you see are swaying crates and one lopsided barrel. Someone, for reasons you'll never understand, volunteers to row out and board it. His name's Aldrich, and you remember he once wrestled a wild boar with a frying pan. Makes sense. He paddles out, clambers aboard, and doesn't wave back. You wait. 5 minutes. 10. Eventually a second man shouts, "Aldrich!" Then quieter. "You all right?" His voice carries across the water like a whispered dare. No answer. 15 minutes later, the harbour master insists on dragging the ship in with hooks. His hands tremble the whole time. "Just in case," he mutters. "In case it's, pirates." Classic denial. You wonder if he believes it even as he says it. They tether the ship, and then a box tumbles out. One of the crates, mildly splintered, once sealed with wax, is now bleeding. Thick blackish sludge oozes between the wooden slats. A rat skitters from the base of it, its eyes oddly clouded. It darts off the dock and vanishes into town. You step back instinctively. A lot of people do, but not enough. Historians still argue whether that ship carried the first true case or just one of many. Some say it come from Kaffa, where besiegers catapulted infected bodies over city walls like grotesque love letters. Others claim the crew caught the sickness on Cyprus, or even further east, in some nameless port buried by dust and bad luck. What matters now is this. Aldrich finally returns, limping, pale, not quite blinking right. He mutters something about voices in the hold and a bell you can't see. You try to ask what he means, but he just sits down and starts pulling splinters from his hands with a fishbone. You decide not to shake his hand. Over the next hour, people board the ship anyway. Curiosity, it turns out, is a disease all its own. They rummage through spices, bolts of damp cloth, strange preserved lemons that no longer smell like fruit. One child finds a doll, porcelain, cracked, missing an eye, and promptly names it Lady Worm. You step on board last. Only for a second. The deck groans under your weight. The planks are sticky with what looks like dried resin, or dried something. You don't stay long. But long enough to hear it, a faint clang from below. A bell? Maybe a chain? It repeats once, twice, then stops. You freeze, and when it doesn't come again, you back away like a man creeping from a sleeping bear. Back on shore, someone's already started arguing that the goods should be distributed. "We can't waste cloth," shouts a tailor with 12 children. "And those spices. Mint. Real mint." But the harbour master shakes his head. "Burn it," he says. "All of it." He's ignored. By nightfall, half the crates are gone. Sold or stolen. You see a woman dragging away a bolt of fabric that looks damp and faintly purple. She clutches it like treasure. 2 hours later, she's coughing. Here's a quirky tidbit for you. In some towns, ships like these were quarantined for 40 days. Quarantagiorni in Venetian dialect, hence the term. But your town? You don't have enough time for long words anymore. That night you sit by the window staring out at the ship. It's empty now, still rocking gently. A lantern swings on the mast. No one lit it. It swings, casts long shadows across the water, and somehow the breeze always seems to bring the stink straight to your room. You close the shutter, you push a cloth under the sill, you light some dried rosemary. Someone said that helped once. Who knows? There's a bell in your dream, loud, slow. Not mournful, just there. It tolls twice, then melts into the sound of waves. You wake sweating and your mouth tastes like coins. Outside, someone's hammering a crude cross to a door. You're still chewing on a chunk of cold barley bread when your cat disappears behind a rain barrel and doesn't come out. She's usually back by now. Every morning she trots home with a dead beetle or a smug expression or both. But not today. You wait. You whistle. Nothing. Then you hear it. A weird scraping rustle, like dry leaves, but faster. And then a soft thud. You round the corner and see her crouched, eyes wide, fur standing on end. Her tail lashes once. She's not alone. There, pouring from the base of a shattered crate are rats. Not 2, not 10, dozens. Slick, frantic, and moving in a way that doesn't seem quite natural. Like they're all trying to get away from each other and themselves at the same time. They cascade from the crate like beans from a sack. Some have fur missing. Some are twitching. One stops, stares up at you, and you swear its teeth are stained red. You should walk away, but you don't. You're frozen. A man across the alley yells, "Don't touch them!" A bit late, considering your cat is already in the middle of them. She darts forward, swats one on the snout, and yowls. The rat hisses, an actual hiss, and then collapses. Dead, just like that. You grab your cat and bolt. Back inside, you check her paws, her eyes. She seems okay, just shaken. You, on the other hand, are sweating through your tunic. You wash your hands 5 times and still feel unclean. Later, you learn those rats weren't the first. One had already scurried across the altar during morning mass. Another was found dead in the mill's grain chute. The miller swears it blinked after it died. No one believes him. You almost do. Here's your mainstream fact for the day. Rats didn't carry the plague directly. It was the fleas. Those little hitchhikers sucked infected blood, then panicked when their host died and bit whatever was nearby. People. You. Your cat. But hey, you didn't get bitten. Yet. That afternoon, the cobbler closes shop. Says he's feeling off. You see him walking home, wobbling like he's drunk. 2 kids point and giggle. He turns to them, eyes glassy, and coughs. Not a little cough. A deep, wet one. The giggling stops. You start noticing little things. A fishmonger wrapping her hands in oil-soaked rags. A monk rubbing garlic on his robes. A group of servants arguing over whether vinegar-soaked coins are still cursed money or just fancy tips. Historians still argue whether the early days of plague transmission involved actual airborne particles, or if it was just close, sweaty proximity and terrible hygiene. Either way, your town is now a soup of both. That night, the rats return. Not to your alley, but to the square. You see them in clusters, hiding in barrels, scurrying under carts. People chase them off with brooms. One man lights a torch and sets a haystack on fire to smoke them out. He gets an enthusiastic round of applause, and a fine the next day for property damage. You laugh a little, then you cough. Just once. You don't tell anyone. By morning, rat corpses line the road like terrible confetti. Some look exploded, one has 3 tails. You try not to stare. You fail. Your neighbour's kid picks one up and proudly names it Sir Crumbles. You make a mental note not to accept cookies from their household. Oh, and here's your weird tidbit of the day. In some medieval towns, people believed rats were cursed humans, punished for hoarding gold. So naturally they drowned them while reciting the Lord's Prayer backwards. Super effective, you're sure. Later you visit the tanner. You need a new belt. He barely opens the door, speaks through a crack. "If you've seen rats, burn your shoes," he says, then slams the door. You do not buy a belt, not buy a... By evening, a group of boys forms a rat patrol. They paint crude insignias on their cloaks, carry sticks, and chant something that sounds like a bad rhyme. Rats with red eyes bring the bell, catch one quick and run like hell. You chuckle, until you notice one boy has a swollen lump on his neck. The same night a stranger arrives from the north. She wears a red veil, speaks little, and buys herbs from the apothecary without bartering. When asked why she's in town, she simply says, "To watch it begin." You really wish she hadn't said that. Back home, your cat sleeps curled against your feet. She's warm, breathing steady. You tell yourself everything is fine, just rats, just superstition, just temporary. But you still boil water for no reason. You rub vinegar under your nose. You tuck a rosemary sprig behind your ear like it's armour. You don't sleep well, because the crates are empty now. The rats are out. And whatever they carried and it's loose. You're awakened by bells. Not the usual soft chimes marking morning prayer, but frantic, unsteady clangs, like someone swinging the rope as hard as they can with no rhythm, no pause, no end in sight. You sit up, heart racing. For a second you think the dream is back, the one with the ship and the bell that rang underwater. But no, this one is real. Loud. Too loud. The church is less than 5 minutes away, and already people are in the streets, heads tilted toward the tower. The bell doesn't stop. It clangs again and again, echoing off stone walls, drowning out voices. You pass a woman clutching a crying baby. Her eyes are red. She says nothing, just nods in the direction of the square. The priest is there, alone, yanking the bell cord with trembling hands. His robes are wet with sweat. His forehead glistens. You call out to him. He doesn't answer, just keeps pulling, like he's trying to wake the entire town, or warn them. You don't know which is worse. People begin to gather, some kneel, some whisper. Others just stand and stare like they're waiting for an explanation that never comes. Then someone screams. You whirl around and see a man, one of the grain merchants, collapse mid-step. He falls face first, limbs twitching. His wife drops to her knees, trying to turn him over. His lips are already blue. The priest finally stops ringing. Everyone stands frozen. Then the whispers begin. It's here. The sickness. Just like in the East. You edge back through the crowd. Every cough feels louder now. Every sneeze is a warning shot. Here's your mainstream fact. Medieval towns used bells to mark plague deaths, often ringing once for each soul lost. In some cities, the bells never stopped for weeks. Imagine trying to sleep through that. Imagine trying to pretend it meant anything else. Later that day, the baker's apprentice collapses behind the stall. He's young, 17, strong, but he just sinks. You don't see him rise again. The baker herself hasn't been seen since yesterday. Some townspeople try to rationalise. It's just fever, bad stew, a touch of the black bile. But you can feel the shift. People are stepping farther apart, speaking in whispers, holding sleeves over their faces when they pass others. Historians still argue whether these were psychosomatic responses, or if people instinctively understood the concept of contagion. Either way, your town suddenly becomes a place of locked doors and sidelong glances. You see someone toss coins onto the cobblestones instead of handing them over. The seller scoops them up with a wooden spoon. Later, in the square, the town crier nails a parchment to the post. It reads, "Any household with signs of fever or swelling must hang red cloth from the door. No visitors allowed. Bread will be delivered if able." You walk past 5 houses already draped in red. The old priest, now quiet, sits on the church steps staring into space. His hands are bandaged. You ask what happened. He murmurs something about rope burns and visions, says he heard something while ringing the bell. A voice, a hum. You don't press him, you just nod. Here's a fringe tidbit. Some believed the ringing of church bells drove out diseased spirits. Others thought it attracted them. Either way, the bells always rang. Because silence, that was worse. That evening you help a neighbour carry buckets of vinegar to splash over the doorstep. The theory goes, if it stings the nose, it kills the plague. You doubt it, but vinegar smells better than fear. You hear someone down the road laugh a little too hard. Hysteria's setting in. You light a candle at your window. It's something the apothecary said to do, something about light drawing good spirits. Or maybe it was just so people could see who was still alive. That night, your cat curls in your lap. You stroke her ears and think about the merchant who collapsed. He used to give you dried dates during festivals. He's probably being buried already, quietly, in a pit. You glance at the bell tower in the moonlight. You swear you see movement at the top. No bell ringer, no priest, just the rope, swaying slightly on its own. Sleep doesn't come easy, because the bell still echoes in your ears, because you wonder if that priest knew something before the rest of you did, and because you realise there's no plan. No one is coming to save you. The baker's shop is boarded shut. You walk by it at sunrise just to be sure, but there's no mistake. The once cheerful painted sign with its smiling loaf is cracked clean down the middle. A scrap of red cloth flutters from the shutter hinge. The smell of yeast and scorched flour that used to trail down the street like a promise is gone. Replaced by something darker, wet, almost metallic. You used to buy your bread here every week. Toma always gave you the end crust for free. said you looked like someone who understood the good parts. You wonder what happened to her body. You wonder who will bury her. You wonder if anyone even will. Then someone coughs behind you. You spin fast, heart thudding, but it's just a child, dirty-faced, clutching a crust of something too stale to bite. He doesn't even seem sick, just thin. You give him a coin. He doesn't touch it, just stares, eyes hollow. And then he runs. Later that morning, you visit the mill. You want to see if they're still grinding, if there will even be flour next week. You find the door ajar, the grindstone motionless. The place smells of dust and fear. And the miller's apprentice, Adelard, is slumped against a sack of barley, face blistered, mouth slightly open. A fly crawls across his lip. You back away slowly, your feet whispering against the stone floor. You don't run, but you want to. You find yourself at the apothecary's again, not sure why. The place smells like mint and panic. People are lined up outside, holding sprigs of herbs, empty bottles, or nothing but hopeful eyes. Inside, the apothecary is busy, mixing something thick and dark in a copper basin. It's a syrup, he tells the woman ahead of you. Pine tar, mint, powdered oak gall. Drink it hot. Say a prayer, maybe 3. She doesn't ask what's in it, neither do you. When your turn comes, he looks you over and mutters, "You've still got colour in your cheeks. That's good." He hands you a vial. The liquid is black and syrupy. "Tastes like regret," he adds helpfully. He's right. You take a sip on the way home and immediately gag. It burns, then numbs your throat. You're not sure if it's helping or if your tongue has just given up. Historians still argue whether these early remedies did anything at all, whether they provided true defence or just false comfort. Some say pine tar helped clear the lungs. Others think it just kept people too busy vomiting to notice they were dying. Back on your street you notice something eerie. The silence. No laughter, no gossip, no quarrels. You pass 3 people in total, all with cloth over their mouths. One man clutches a pot of burning rosemary like a holy relic. A delivery boy, face flushed, drops a loaf at a red-draped door, knocks once and bolts. It's not even noon. And here's your historical tidbit of the day. During the worst outbreaks, some towns banned all gatherings. No markets, no masses, no funerals. People left food at doorsteps and rang bells when they needed help. Eventually no one answered the bells. You check your own skin that night, just in case. You've heard stories now about the lumps. Under the arms, behind the ears, black spots too. Bruises that bloom without warning. So far, you're clean. But your pulse is high, and your breath shallow. You tell yourself it's just nerves. Your cat watches you silently from a shelf, as if judging your paranoia. You stick your tongue out at her. She blinks slowly, unimpressed. Then the coughing starts. Not yours, your neighbour. At first it's a low hacking, harsh and dry. Then a pause, then again. Over and over, like someone dragging nails across their own ribs. You close your shutters. Someone else starts singing. Quiet. Off-key. A lullaby, maybe. It doesn't help. That night you dream you're baking bread. You press the dough, fold it, shape it, and it bleeds in your hands. You try to wash it off, but your well is full of rats. They climb up the rope and whisper your name. You wake soaked in sweat. At some point you hear a door slam, then footsteps running, then nothing. You light a candle and sip more of the tar syrup. It coats your tongue like a lie. The apothecary said to drink it hot. You drink it cold. The candle flickers. Somewhere in the distance a bell tolls once, not the church bell, something smaller, closer. You don't move, you just listen. To the coughs, to the silence, to the sound of your own breath trying to stay brave. You know it's gotten worse when the barber surgeon starts making house calls. Normally he wouldn't bother. His shop, half barber, half blood-slick guessing game, is where people go for leeches, tooth-pulling, and an occasional shave if they're feeling lucky. But this morning you see him trudging through the square with his bag of blades and jars, already stained from earlier visits. He knocks on the weaver's door, waits. No one answers. He shrugs and lets himself in. You don't stay to listen. Later you find him set up outside the bakery that no longer bakes. He's laid out his instruments like a butcher might. Knives, hooks, jars, thread, and a bowl filled with what looks like beetles floating in wine. Someone says they're medicinal. You sit on a barrel a few paces away watching, mostly because there's nothing else to do. A man arrives, His eyes sunken and lips cracked. He looks like he hasn't slept in a week, or eaten. The barber nods, motions for him to sit. Then, without hesitation, he pulls a cloth over the man's shoulder, tightens a cord around his bicep and pulls out a blade. Bloodletting. Of course. The theory goes, sickness is bad blood. Drain the blood, drain the sickness. Simple. Wrong, obviously, but simple. The blade slices, the blood runs. It's thin, pinkish, a little too fast. The man sags but smiles faintly. Feels cooler, he mutters. The barber nods, like that's enough. He wipes the blade on a rag that's already stained a dozen times over. You look down and realise he never disinfects between patients. Not that he knows how. You look away. Historians still argue whether these bloodletting rituals ever helped. Some say the placebo effect kept people calm. Others believe it killed them faster. Either way, you can't ignore the line forming behind the chair. You think about joining it, just to be safe. But your cat would never forgive you if you let someone stab you for fun. Instead, you head to the well again. This time, you're not alone. A group of older women is gathered there, each carrying dried herbs, cloth strips, and something that smells like burning hair. They say prayers you don't recognise, half Latin, half local gibberish, passed down from grandmothers who lived through something, though no one remembers what. One of them looks you over, presses a sprig of juniper to your chest and tells you, "Don't wear wool. It traps the bad air." You nod. You're not wearing wool, but thank her anyway. She hands you a pouch. Dried sage, marigold, and something that looks suspiciously like beetle wings. Boil it. Breathe the steam. You do. Not because you believe it, but because it's something to do. Here's your fringe tidbit. In some towns, people stuffed their nostrils with dried flowers to block out corrupted air. Others smeared pitch and animal fat on their faces. One noble even tried wearing a hollow ruby under his tongue. Died anyway. By mid-afternoon, the square is a tangle of noises. Coughing, chanting, soaring. The barber is now lancing boils on a young woman's neck while 3 others shield their eyes. The woman doesn't scream. She just groans once and slumps. He wipes his hands on his apron, looks at you. Still healthy? You nod. He nods back. Don't wait too long. Better to drain early than rot late. You go home. That night your dreams are worse. You're being bled, but the bowl never fills. Instead, the blood floats upward, forming the shape of the bell tower. Then it rings. And each chime bursts your veins open one by one. You wake gasping, clutching your own wrists. You go outside to breathe. The moon is high, the streets are empty, except for one figure crouched near the well. You squint. It's the barber. He's talking to something, or someone. There's no one else there. You take a step closer. He turns suddenly, stares straight at you. His mouth moves, but you hear nothing. You step back. He raises one hand slowly like he's waving, or warning you away. You don't wait to find out which. Back inside, you sit by the fire. Your cat is asleep again, twitching her tail in some small feline nightmare. You envy her simplicity. You take out the pouch of herbs and inhale. It doesn't help. You drink another mouthful of the apothecary's tar syrup. It doesn't help either. Then you notice the lump. Small. Tender. Just under your arm. Could be a bite. Could be a bruise. You tell yourself it's nothing. You light another candle. You stay awake until dawn. Because tomorrow you might need the barber. And not for a shave. The city gate is open. You see it first thing in the morning as the fog lifts and the bell tower casts its long shadow over the empty square. The gate, 2 heavy oak doors that usually creak shut at sundown and don't move till sunrise, is gaping wide like a broken jaw. No guards, no carts, no one watching, just a drift of hay and a trail of muddy footprints leading out. You weren't expecting that. You approach slowly, squinting into the distance. There's a smear of something reddish on one of the gate's iron braces. Rust or not. You don't check. Beyond the gate, the road stretches out like an escape. Fields wave gently in the morning light. The wind is sweet, faintly sour, still, but less heavy than inside town. You're not the only one who notices. A family you've seen at the market, a husband, wife, and 3 children, come marching out of the alley behind the candlemakers. The kids are bundled tight, 2 goats in tow, the wife balancing a sack on her back. The husband locks eyes with you and doesn't blink. He grips a staff in one hand, the child's wrist in the other. "We're going east," he says flatly. You ask why. His reply, "There's nothing left to buy, only things to bury." Then they leave. You watch them walk away until they're just dots on the road. And that's when you notice the merchant caravan. 3 carts, 6 oxen, about a dozen people, all strangers. They're entering the city, not fleeing, entering, and nobody stops them. You wave your arms, shout that the plague is here, that they should turn back. But they ignore you. A woman near the front waves lazily, like you're just being dramatic. By the time you get close, they're already unloading goods. Spices, bolts of linen, something that smells vaguely like pepper and death. You warn them again. One man laughs. "We've seen worse," he says. You're not sure he has. Here's your mainstream fact. During several plague outbreaks, some cities sealed themselves off completely. Others stayed open out of desperation. Commerce, supply chains, fear of rebellion. In places like yours, fear often outweighed planning. Gates were sometimes locked late or left open entirely. The mayor is nowhere to be found. You head to the town hall and find only an assistant, young, pale, overwhelmed. He's stacking parchments into a crate. "For preservation," he mutters, "so they know we tried." You ask where the mayor is. He doesn't look up. "Left 2 days ago, took the good horse." That explains a lot. You spend the rest of the day watching people come and go. The gate stays open. A few leave, some silently, some weeping, some whispering to saints under their breath. Others arrive with hope in their eyes and cloth tied over their noses. You want to scream at them, tell them it's too late. But what would that do? So you go to the inn. It's half empty. The innkeeper used to joke that his walls had seen more tears than ale. Now he just wipes the bar with something that looks like it's been used to clean a chimney and pours you a cup without asking what you want. You drink it. It's sharp, herbal, and probably not legal. He shrugs. New shipment came in. Might as well celebrate. Celebrate what? A group of traders sits at a table nearby, arguing about whether the sickness is divine punishment or bad weather. One insists it's from a cursed spring in Genoa. Another says it's the fleas. The third just drinks and hums tunelessly. Historians still argue whether local leaders understood how disease moved. Some tried cordoning streets, others held mass burnings of possessions. But the plague always found its way in. Or maybe it was already there. The innkeeper suddenly slams a tankard down. "No more coin," he growls. "Only food or clean cloth." You look at your coin pouch and wonder how long it'll be useful. Probably not much longer than the mayor's chair will stay warm. As you leave, you pass a man in the alley behind the inn. He's bent over, vomiting into a drain. You give him space, but he grabs your sleeve as you pass. "Tell her I'm sorry," he gasps. "Tell Marcy I didn't mean to take the gloves." You promise you will. You don't know who Marcy is. At dusk, a group of townsfolk tries to shut the gate. They argue, push, strain at the hinges. It resists. The wood is swollen, the latch rusted open. Then someone points out, "If we close it, who brings bread tomorrow?" And just like that, the effort dissolves. The gate stays open. That night you hear footsteps outside your window. Quick, unsteady. Then silence. You rise, peek through the shutters. Just a scarf in the street. Red. You don't go out. You double bar the door. Because the town's heart has a hole in it now. The kind that used to be a plan. And that hole is wide open. The midwives are gone. At first it's just a whisper. Julianne hasn't come home. Marion's house is locked. Aline's herbs are still hanging, but no one's seen her. You don't think much of it. People disappear now. Sometimes they leave. Sometimes they just stop answering the door. It's the new normal, but then a woman goes into labour. Her name is Heloise. You remember her from market days, always laughing too loud, belly leading the way, bargaining like she ran the entire kingdom. She's only a few weeks from delivery, and now she's doubled over outside the butcher's stall, her face twisted in pain. You run to find help. First the baker's wife, gone. Then the tanner's mother, locked in, coughing. The priest? You don't even check. He hasn't been seen since the bell rang on its own that one night. You race to Heloise's house, pound on the door. Her husband answers, panicked, sleeves rolled and soaked in sweat. There's no one left, he tells you. So you stay. You boil water, though you're not sure why. It feels like the right thing. You fetch rags, soap, herbs. You tell her to breathe. She tells you to shut up. She screams for 2 hours. You hold her hand. You have no idea what you're doing. But the child comes, a girl, alive. She doesn't cry at first, just opens her eyes, enormous, silent. solemn, like she already knows. Then she wails. It's the best sound you've heard all week. Heloise sobs with relief. So do you, a little. You don't stay long. You help clean, leave a few herbs, and say a quiet prayer over the baby just in case the gods are still listening. You don't mention the cough you heard from the next room. Here's your mainstream fact. Midwives were the frontline healthcare workers of the medieval world. They delivered babies, administered herbs, treated wounds, and comforted the dying. And during plagues, they vanished fastest, either because they fled or because they didn't. Outside, things are changing. The market is nearly bare. The fishmonger's stall is unmanned, just a few sad eels slowly stiffening in the sun. Bread is left in baskets with no seller nearby. A single coin glints beside a loaf. You pass 3 more homes marked with red. And the worst part? The silence isn't peaceful. It's the kind that presses on your chest, like a breath you forgot how to take. A small child sits on a doorstep humming to herself, cradling a lump of fabric. You think it's a doll until you get closer and see it's a dead bird wrapped in ribbon. She smiles. His name is Father Bell. You walk faster. Here's your fringe tidbit of the day. In some towns, children believed plague spirits could be tricked with dolls or false bodies made of straw and cloth. Some even built little houses for them outside their real homes. Sometimes adults joined in. You hear stories now of people trying odd things. One man locked himself in his wine cellar with nothing but cheese and a crossbow. A widow smeared goose fat on her windows to keep out evil air. Another couple wrapped themselves in parchment pages from old law books. They said it confused the spirits. Historians still debate whether these rituals had symbolic power or were simply the last grasp of desperate minds. Either way, you're starting to understand. That evening, the sun sets red and strange, casting blood-coloured streaks across the rooftops. You find yourself staring at the horizon, thinking about the midwives. Where did they go? Did they run? Or were they buried with no one left to write it down? Maybe they still linger. You pass Eloise's home again. There's a faint light inside. You hear the baby crying, and oddly it comforts you. Because some things still cry. Some things still fight to live. You head home and write a small note on parchment. If I fall ill, I'll hang white cloth. Don't come in. You pin it inside your door. That night you light every candle you have. Not because you're afraid of the dark, but because light feels like resistance. You hold your cat a little closer. She purrs, unaware or maybe uncaring. Cats have lived through worse. Then you hear footsteps. Slow, measured, right outside your window. You freeze. A knock. 3 soft taps. You don't move. The steps retreat. No cloth is hung on your door. You don't sleep. Because if the midwives are gone, who will come for you? It begins with a smell. Again. This one is different. Not the sick, sour taint that's clung to the town like fog for weeks now, but something sharper, earthy, ashy. It drifts in on the morning breeze and settles like dread in the back of your throat. You follow it past the square, past the shuttered stalls and the newest house with red cloth hanging limp as a tongue. You follow the smoke, and you find them. 3 men, 1 boy, shovels in hand. They're digging behind the abbey. The earth there is soft, recently turned. Piles of disturbed soil line the field like sleeping beasts. You stop a short distance away, unsure if you should be here. No one looks up. The boy retches quietly. No one comforts him. One of the men mutters, "The priest said to start stacking. We're running out of room." You don't ask what he means, you see it. The pit is wide, deep, dark. Not neat like a grave, not reverent, just a hole, just a place to put bodies. One wrapped in linen lies near the edge. Someone's drawn a cross in charcoal over the cloth. Another is just bones and hair. The boy throws up again. You turn to leave, but one of the men gestures to you. "We could use another pair of hands." You freeze. Say no, and you're selfish. Say yes, and you can't unsee what's at the bottom of that pit. You nod. He hands you a shovel. You dig. The work is heavy, hot. Even in the cool morning air, your shirt sticks to your skin, and your palms blister before noon. The silence of the graveyard is broken only by the scrape of iron on earth, the occasional grunt, and the soft thud of soil falling. The worst part? The smell doesn't fade. It gets into your teeth. your hair, your mind. Here's your mainstream fact. During major plague waves, traditional burials collapsed under the sheer number of dead. Mass graves, pits like these, became the only option. Bodies were stacked like logs, quick prayers whispered or skipped entirely. At some point you stop asking who these people were. There are too many. Faces are covered, names are forgotten. You wonder if anyone will dig your grave. The abbey's monks come by once, stand at a distance, chant a quick psalm, then disappear. One of them carries a censer filled with incense, swinging it furiously as if it could hold back the stench or the sickness or both. You don't blame them. The boy sits down and won't get up again. His hands shake. You hand him water. He doesn't drink it. Here's your fringe tidbit. In some towns, gravediggers were given double rations of beer and extra garlic to strengthen their blood. Some wore scarves dipped in vinegar. Some just drank until they stopped caring. By mid-afternoon, your arms ache. Your mouth is dry. You've lost track of how many bodies were lowered into the pit. You don't speak. No one does. Then a bell rings. Not the big church bell, a small handbell. You look up and see a young woman walking down the hill, her face covered, a baby bundled in her arms. She holds the bell in one hand. It jingles once more as she stops near the edge of the pit. "I can't keep her," she says softly. You step forward. She unwraps the cloth, just a peek, and you see the baby's face. Peaceful, perfect, not moving. The woman doesn't cry. Her voice is flat. "I named her Isabeau." You nod. She places the baby down gently, like she's laying her in a cradle. Then she leaves. The gravedigger beside you mutters something that might be a prayer, or a curse. You're not sure. You stay until the sun dips low. When the work finally ends, the pit is covered with fresh earth. No markers, no stones, just ground. You trudge home in silence, boots heavy with soil and regret. No one speaks to you on the road. You don't speak either. You pass a house you once visited for winter feasts. The windows are dark. A single white ribbon is tied to the door handle. That night you try to wash the graveyard off your skin. The water goes cold fast. Your hands stay red. Your cat won't come near you. She sniffs, growls, and hides under the bed. You lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how many others will need burying tomorrow, and whether anyone will be left to dig. The pigeons are gone. You don't notice it at first. You're too busy scrubbing your boots outside, trying to erase yesterday's graveyard from the treads. But something about the morning feels off, lighter somehow, not in a pleasant way. You sit for a moment under the eaves, watching the rooftops across the street. You used to see pigeons perched there, pecking at thatch, cooing in the chimneys, fluttering around the steeple like gossiping monks. Today, nothing. No flapping wings, no sudden bursts of feathers, not even a dropping on the baker's empty signboard. You look up and realise the sky is still. The town has lost its birds. You ask around. A vendor with one remaining apple says she saw them all lift off yesterday afternoon. "Big cloud of 'em," she says. "Went east, like they were running from a storm." She laughs nervously. "Birds know things." You nod. Because honestly, that's starting to make more sense than anything else. Here's your mainstream fact. Across Europe during the plague years, people noticed odd animal behaviours. Dogs howling, birds vanishing, livestock refusing to eat. We now know they were often reacting to environmental changes and human decay. Back then, though, it felt like omens. You visit the church tower just to check. Climb the creaking steps, one careful foot at a time. You open the trapdoor to the belfry and poke your head into the musty space. The floor is thick with dust. Cobwebs dance in the breeze. And in the corner, where a family of pigeons used to nest, there's just a feather. One. Perfectly clean. White. You pocket it. On the way down, you catch your breath. The stairs spin for a second, your knees dip. Just tired. You keep telling yourself that. Tired. That afternoon, the apothecary is out of syrup. He offers you a handful of salt crystals and a satchel of what he calls rue of the unquiet. Tells you to scatter it near your threshold. "It's bad now," he mutters. Even the crows are turning up their noses. You ask if pigeons are supposed to leave like this. He shrugs. Maybe they know where not to die. Here's your fringe tidbit. In some plague-era towns, people believed pigeons could draw sickness from homes. They'd tether them to infected patients and wait to see if the bird keeled over. If it did, that meant it worked. Somehow. You spend the evening watching the rooftops. Still nothing. No flapping, no cooing, just wind. You try to write a letter to your cousin in the hills. You don't know if couriers are even running anymore, but you write it anyway. Something about how the town feels emptier by the day, how the pigeons left, how you envy them. You sign it with your name and a pressed rosemary leaf, just in case it ever makes it. That night you hear a thud outside. You peek through the shutters and see a sack on your doorstep. Bread. 2 loaves, still warm. No note, no footsteps. Just the soft shape of help. You don't eat it right away. You leave it there, like an offering, like a thank you. Maybe the pigeons took the message for you. You lie in bed, feather on your windowsill, watching it twitch in the breeze. You wonder where the birds went, if they'll come back, if they should come back. Then you hear singing, faint, far away. A child's voice, lilting, wordless. You recognize the melody. It's one the midwives used to hum. You sit up, press your ear to the shutters. No footsteps, no laughter, just the song. And then silence. Your cat jumps onto the bed, tail flicking. She stares out the window, ears up. You whisper, "Did you hear that?" She doesn't blink. You sleep poorly. Because now even the pigeons are afraid to land. The apothecary's face is drawn tight today. He doesn't say much when you walk in, just motions toward a shelf behind him, where a new assortment of glass bottles sits, each tagged with a scrap of parchment and smeared ink. None of the labels make sense. One reads lung shadow remedy, another tongue still tonic. One simply says hope. You choose the one that smells the least like something scraped off a boot heel. He wraps it in cloth, avoids your eyes, and says, "Drink slow, or fast. I don't know anymore." The air inside is thicker than usual, boiled mint, pine tar, and vinegar. That strange trio again, like a desperate forest trying to disinfect itself. And behind the counter, you see his daughter. She's maybe 9, curled under a table. Crayon drawings on the wall, little stick figures, and what might be a rat with a crown. One of them is of the church tower, drawn with an exaggerated bell and flames around the top. You glance at the apothecary. He follows your gaze, then just says, "She saw something." You don't ask what. Instead, you buy some extra cloves and a linen pouch of dried fig bark. He throws in a chunk of beeswax and mutters, "For your nose, when the bodies pile up." Comforting. You step back out into the street and instantly wish you hadn't. There's a man by the well, bare-chested, slathering his skin in some kind of brown goo. You can smell it before you see it. Sweet, sour, almost sticky. You ask what he's doing. He beams. Pine tar keeps the sickness from seeping in. His skin glistens like varnished meat. He slaps his chest with both hands. It traps the miasma. Nothing gets through. Then he sneezes. Twice. Doesn't cover his mouth. You take several steps back and make a mental note not to use that well again. Here's your mainstream fact. Pine tar was widely used during medieval outbreaks as a sealant for wounds and a barrier against disease. Some physicians believed coating the skin would block poisoned air. Spoiler, it didn't. You pass another alley. Someone strung bundles of lavender and wormwood between the windows. It's not even for the smell anymore. It's for the illusion of control. A signal to the street. We're trying. Don't give up on us yet. You get home, sit by the window and unwrap the vial. It glows faintly, almost green. You hesitate, then drink. It tastes like regret boiled with tree bark. Your stomach clenches, your mouth dries. For a second you can't tell if it's working or if your soul is trying to escape your body through your tongue. Still, you don't die, so that's something. Here's your fringe tidbit. A group of plague pharmacists in Avignon survived the Black Death while treating hundreds. Legend says they drank a mixture of vinegar, sage and camphor daily. Others say they bribed death with better recipes. By nightfall, the street is empty again. You sit outside with your cat, sharing the warmth of a single candle, and the faint illusion that all of this is going to end. Then you hear a knock on the next door down. You freeze. A voice follows. Low, calm. Herbs. For the fever. No one answers. The knock again. You watch from the shadows as the door opens slightly. A pale hand reaches out. The bottle is passed. The door shuts. You recognize the figure now. The woman with the red veil from the day the merchant ship came in. She walks past you without looking your way. Your cat growls. You clutch your feather. That night, you burn the fig bark in a clay bowl. The smell curls into the room, rich and earthy, like ancient wood and unanswered questions. You lie down and whisper a wish into your pillow. Not for healing, not even for answers, just for time. Time to breathe. Time to make it another day. Because the syrup might be working, or not. And because hope apparently now comes in little glass bottles with smudged labels. The beaked masks appear without warning. You see the first one at dawn, standing near the old fountain. Tall figure, motionless, dressed head to toe in dark robes that shimmer faintly with oil. The mask, a long bird-like beak with glassy round eyes, turns as you pass, slow and deliberate. You wave awkwardly. It doesn't wave back. A child throws a stone at it later that morning. The figure doesn't flinch, just tilts its head until the boy runs away crying. By noon, there are 4 more. They don't speak, don't knock, they just appear at doorways, near alleyways, beneath arches, watching, observing. Sometimes you see them writing in small notebooks. Other times they simply stand there. No one knows who they are. Some say doctors, others say monks. One man swears they're spirits sent to measure the dead. You try not to look directly into their glass eyes. It feels like staring into the bottom of a locked box. Here's your mainstream fact. Plague doctors in the 17th century wore these iconic masks filled with aromatic herbs to protect against miasma, bad air. The beak wasn't for intimidation, though it succeeded. It was a primitive air filter. The apothecary chuckles when you mention them. They finally made it here, eh? A bit late. You ask if they help. He shrugs. They observe. They record. Occasionally they suggest bathing, which no one does. You spot one near the baker's old shop stooping to pick up a scrap of cloth. He tucks it into a pouch, scribbles something, then vanishes behind a shuttered house. You decide to follow the next one you see. Not closely, just enough to satisfy the creeping itch of curiosity that's been gnawing at your sleep. You tail one down the crooked back lanes, past the butcher's courtyard, and the burned coop that still smells like old feathers. The figure moves with eerie stillness like it's gliding. It pauses, occasionally listening. You hear it mutter something into the beak but can't catch the words. Then it turns a corner and vanishes. You round the bend and find nothing. No footprints, no movement. Just a mural on the wall, newly painted in red ink. A giant bird head with bleeding eyes, surrounded by what looks like children. You step back. Here's your fringe tidbit. In some villages, people believed the plague doctor wasn't a healer but a harbinger, that if one showed up on your street it meant the death tally had already been written. Some towns banned the mask entirely. That night, your cat knocks something off the windowsill. You rise to pick it up and freeze. There's a beak mask on your doorstep. Not a person, just the mask, resting there like a gift. Or a warning. You don't touch it. You leave it until morning when it's gone. The red-veiled woman passes you later. She's humming. Same tune the child sang the other night. You ask if she saw who left the mask. She smiles too wide. Maybe they think you'll need it soon. You don't sleep that night. Every creak sounds like footsteps. Every breeze whispers through imaginary beaks. And even your cat avoids the front door. You tell yourself it's nothing, that the masks are just cloth and glass, but you can't forget the way they never blink. Because beaks are for birds, and these birds never fly away. You hear music, faint at first, just a melody drifting on the breeze like it doesn't know where to land. Not a hymn, not anything you recognise. It's faster, lighter, playful. You step outside, eyes adjusting to the brightness. There, in the square, people are dancing. Yes, dancing. You blink, unsure if it's real. It starts with just a few. Mostly younger folk, a couple of merchants' sons, a girl you remember once traded you goat cheese for a story. They're spinning, laughing, arms thrown wide like the world hasn't rotted under their feet. Someone's drumming with a pot lid. Another claps along. A stringed instrument, badly tuned but determined, joins in. And more people come. Children run in circles, ribbons in hand. An old woman sways from side to side, her eyes closed. Someone tosses petals. Where they even found petals, you don't know. You just stand and watch, caught between awe and dread. Because here's the thing, it's beautiful, and also, it's absolutely totally wrong. Too joyful, too sudden, too loud. You step closer, catch snippets of conversation. The fever's gone. It's past. A priest said the wind changed. No one says what really happened. That the fever didn't stop, that the baker's boy died yesterday, that the midwife never came back. You glance at the rooftops. Still no birds. You glance at the alleyways. Still too many shadows. You stay at the edge of the dancing, watching. Here's your mainstream fact. During plague years, spontaneous dancing manias broke out across Europe. Groups would dance uncontrollably for hours, days, even until collapse. Some say it was a psychological break, mass hysteria. Others say it was ritual, a desperate plea. Someone grabs your arm and pulls you in. You resist, but only for a moment, because their laughter is contagious in its own way. You twirl once, twice. Try to remember how to move without thinking. Your feet feel heavier than they should, your breath too shallow. A girl with a bruised eye takes your hand, spins you, laughs. She's missing 3 teeth. It doesn't matter. For a moment, the plague doesn't exist. You almost believe it, until someone collapses. A man, maybe 40, mid-turn, mouth still stretched in a smile. He falls like a puppet with its strings cut. Doesn't get up. Someone yells. Then a second dancer drops. The music stutters. Stops. People freeze mid-step, unsure what's part of the dance anymore. A boy says, maybe they're tired, but they're not breathing. Someone backs away. Another starts praying aloud. The old woman who was swaying begins to scream. Not words, just raw sound. And just like that, the square empties. People scatter, shoes slap cobblestone. The pot-lid drummer drops his instrument and runs. You stay behind, breath caught in your throat. 2 bodies. One smile still carved onto the man's face like it forgot how to leave. You don't remember walking home. You don't remember closing the door. You just sit on the floor, back against the wall, hearing the music play again in your head. Faster this time. Twisting, disjointed. Your feet twitch once. You hold them still. Here's your fringe tidbit. Some people believed the plague spirit could be appeased with celebration, laughter, movement, that if you acted alive enough, death might overlook you. Others said those who danced were already cursed, their minds boiling with invisible worms. You check your pulse, still there, still steady. You drink water, you eat bread. You stroke your cat until she purrs and forgets the tension in your fingers. You whisper to yourself, I did not dance too long. And then, just before sleep, you hear humming again. That same child's tune, floating down the street, and someone's feet tapping. Soft, slow, out of rhythm. Then silence. Because the dance ends. But the sickness, it always wants an encore. The ship has returned. Not the original, you tell yourself. Not the grey-sailed ghost that drifted in weeks ago like a floating omen. That ship was burned, or scuttled, or left to rot at anchor. Wasn't it? You're at the harbour for no real reason, staring out across the still water. Something pulls your gaze eastward, toward the horizon. And that's when you see it. A sail. Dark. Weather-worn. Tattered at the edges. You don't want to believe it. But the way your breath catches, your body recognises the shape before your brain does. Same hull, same crooked mast, same feeling of wrongness curling in your chest like a rat returning home. A few others gather behind you, muttering. One says, could be traders, another spits. It's her ship, he growls. He doesn't say who her is, you don't ask. As the vessel nears, you realise something strange. It's not coming into the harbour, it's drifting toward the river mouth, slowly, like it's steering itself. Then it turns inland. The water shouldn't be deep enough, and yet it glides forward, against current and wind, right into the marshlands. Someone behind you murmurs, it's following the rats. You don't laugh. You go to the edge of the dock and watch until the ship disappears into the reeds, swallowed by fog and cattails. No one speaks for a long time. Here's your mainstream fact. Ships suspected of carrying plague were often abandoned or sealed offshore. But in more than one account, particularly during the Black Death, people reported unmanned ships drifting inland, even into fields, long after the crew had died. Some were so feared they were never touched, just watched until they sank. You walk home quickly. You tell yourself it doesn't matter, that maybe it's not the same ship, that maybe it's just coincidence, but you can't shake the image. A ship on land, a ship with no oars, a ship that came back. At sunset, a group of townsfolk builds a barrier across the main road. Not a wall, just wagons, furniture, sacks of old grain. A symbolic line. The apothecary helps them. So does the tanner. You pass them carrying boards and straw. No one speaks of the ship, but they build faster once it's mentioned. The red-veiled woman walks by and hums again. You ask her finally, "Why are you still here?" She doesn't stop walking. "You already know," she says. "That night you gather everything you don't need. Torn shoes, old tunics, that sour cheese you've been pretending you might eat. You pile it all in the alley, douse it in oil and set it alight. The smoke smells like endings. Your cat watches from the windowsill, tail flicking. You half expect her to talk, just once, just to say, 'Leave now.' But she doesn't. Here's your fringe tidbit. In some plague legends, ships carried not goods or passengers, but memories. That the wood remembered the fever. That sail soaked in the last breath of the dead would bring that breath inland, even if no one remained aboard. You lie in bed, window cracked. The wind shifts. It's coming from the east now. It smells of wet wood and salt. You dream of a ship gliding through wheat fields, its mast brushing the tops of scarecrows. It passes your house without stopping. You're on the roof, waving a torch, shouting, "We burned you already!" But it doesn't answer. Because some ships don't need a crew. They just remember the route. The bell rings again, not the little handbell, not the distant chimes of a passing cart. The bell, the church bell, the big one that hasn't sounded since the priest disappeared, or cracked, depending on who you ask. You're bent over a half-woven basket when it begins. The first toll is low, guttural, like the stone itself groans with it. Then another, then another. You freeze. It's slow, measured, too even to be an accident. Someone is ringing it. You run. Not fast, not recklessly, but you go, feet pounding the stone path to the church square, heart already outpacing the bell. Others are there too, standing in silence. No shouting, no panic. Just upturned faces and the sound of time dying. The bell tolls 6, 7, 8, you count because there's nothing else to do. The door to the tower is closed, barred. No one can see who's inside, no one saw anyone enter. A boy whispers, "It's him!" Someone slaps his arm. No, really, the priest. He came back. You don't believe it. Because here's the thing, you looked for him. Days ago. The rectory was empty, his bed cold, and the last time you saw him, he was bleeding from both palms, his face as pale as the wax drips on the altar. And yet, the bell tolls. 12, 13. Here's your mainstream fact. During plague outbreaks, bells rang for the dead and dying. Sometimes the number of chimes matched the age of the deceased. Sometimes they simply rang until the bell ringer collapsed. Someone says, "It's not the priest, it's the bell." The red-veiled woman appears beside you. You didn't see her arrive. She says softly, "It remembers how." You don't ask what she means. You're afraid of the answer, because now the bell changes rhythm. Not morning, not announcement, a pattern, long, short, long, 3 beats, then again, long, short, long. People start to murmur. Someone starts crying. A dog howls and bolts. The bell keeps ringing. You ask aloud, "What does it mean?" The woman shrugs. Could be a name, could be a warning, could be nothing, could be madness. You glance at the tower window. For a moment you think you see movement, a shadow behind the glass, but the light is wrong, the angle impossible. And yet, it tolls again. Here's your fringe tidbit. In some plague-struck towns, people believed the bell could summon the sickness. That sound itself could carry the illness through walls and cloth. A few communities banned all bells entirely, believing silence would protect them. It didn't. You leave the square, slowly. The ringing follows you down the street. Not in volume, but in weight. It clings to the air, nestles in your ears, taps behind your eyes. When you reach your home, the windows are shaking. You grab the basket. The weave is ruined. You don't remember when your hand stopped moving. You light a candle and press your palms to the floor, grounding yourself. Your cat refuses to come down from the loft. Even the shadows feel louder now. You take out your feather, hold it close. The bell tolls again. Then silence. Not a pause, not a breath. Just a stop. It's worse than the ringing. You lie awake that night, listening for the next chime that never comes. Your breath counts the space between sounds. A dog barks. A shutter creaks, but the bell stays quiet, as if it said what it needed to say. And now it waits. Smoke rises from the abbey, not from a hearth, not from a kitchen chimney or a careless candle in the vestry. This is thicker, blacker. It billows with purpose. You smell it before you see it. Burnt parchment, old wood, something bitter and almost sweet, like roasted walnuts and grief. You follow the column upward until you see the windows glow faintly, like lanterns lit behind the stone walls. Then comes the sound. Wooden beams crackling, glass splitting, and shouting. You run. Others gather around the outer wall, townsfolk quiet and uncertain, all of them watching the fire climb higher. No one seems to know what to do. There's no bucket line, no frantic splashing. Just faces turned upward and the occasional whispered prayer that doesn't know where to land. A monk emerges. His robe is half burned, one sleeve is gone, his hair is smoking. He stumbles through the gate, hands outstretched like he's feeling for reality. You recognise him, Brother Benway, the one who used to hum while sweeping the cloisters. He's sobbing. "It had to go," he gasps. "We couldn't let it live." Someone catches him by the arm. "What did you burn?" He looks around, wide-eyed, as if realising for the first time that he's outside, that you're all watching him. "The library," he whispers. You blink. "What?" He drops to his knees, coughing. "The pages, the ink, it carries things. We knew. It could spread through words, through records." You feel the air go still around you. Here's your mainstream fact. In some medieval monasteries, fear of plague-through objects was so strong that texts were buried or burned. People believed that parchment could trap infected air, or worse, summon it. You push through the gate. No one stops you. Inside, it's chaos. The shelves are flames. Hundreds of books, scrolls, illuminated pages turned into curling black ghosts. Centuries of knowledge disintegrating into ash. One monk throws a manuscript onto the pyre with trembling hands, muttering a prayer you've never heard before. Another sobs as he drops an armload of bound sermons into the blaze. You stand there, frozen. Part of you wants to scream. Another part, the more exhausted, more plague-era part, just nods. Because of course, if you can't stop the dying, you might as well stop the remembering. Here's your fringe tidbit. Some towns developed folk legends about infected texts, books that whispered curses if read aloud, or scrolls that made your nose bleed when touched. Some said the devil wrote with infected ink, hiding disease in scripture. You spot a child, maybe 10, sifting through the grass near the wall. She's gathering scraps, charred corners of parchment blowing on them like embers. She smiles when she finds a sliver with gold leaf. "I'll keep this one," she says. You want to tell her to drop it, that it might still carry death. But you don't. You just walk away. Outside, the townspeople are slowly dispersing. Smoke hangs low now, pressing into their clothes, their lungs, their minds. The apothecary passes you a cloth soaked in vinegar. "For your mouth. Just in case." You ask, "Why did they do it?" He stares at the abbey, lips tight. "Maybe they thought if the knowledge dies, the sickness will forget us." You get it. Not logically, but emotionally. The fire's not just about fear, it's grief. Some things are too heavy to carry forward, so you burn them, even if they were once sacred. That night, you find bits of ash on your pillow. They must have drifted in through the cracks. You stare at them, little grey flakes, once words, now dust. You wonder what they used to say. You sleep with a cloth over your face just in case, because now even stories might kill. You see red and black on the walls. Not paint, not blood, not soot from the abbey fire. Images. At first just shapes, then symbols, then full figures, simple childlike drawings scrawled across the stone with fingers or sticks, or maybe charcoal snatched from burned beams. They stretch across walls, doorposts, broken carts, tiny narratives crawling like vines through your town. You pause at one house and study the images. A line of people with X's for eyes, a rat with wings, a bell with legs, a towering figure with a beak face standing above them all, arms outstretched. At its feet, children, dancing. Someone steps beside you, a boy, maybe 8, clutching a chipped pot lid. "Do you like it?" he asks. You nod slowly. "Did you draw this?" He shakes his head. "No, we all did." He points down the lane. More walls, more stories. Some crude, others shockingly detailed. A girl balancing on the edge of a plague pit, a boat sailing on dry land, a man with his mouth sewn shut standing beside a sick goat. They say if we draw it, it won't happen to us, the boy whispers. You ask who they are. He shrugs. The ones who left. You feel a chill settle behind your ribs. Here's your mainstream fact. After major plagues, some towns recorded bursts of trauma art on public buildings. Scenes of death, angels, demons, and dancing skeletons, often painted or carved by children. For many, it was a ritual of control in an uncontrollable world. You move on, noticing how many homes now wear their nightmares proudly. It's as if the sickness moved into their walls, and the children answered with chalk and fury. You spot one mural that stops you cold. It's your house, drawn in miniature, unmistakable by its shutter shapes and crooked chimney, and in the doorway a stick figure with something white in one hand. A feather. Above it, a bell. Below it, flames. You don't remember seeing any child sketch it. You step back. Here's your fringe tidbit. In some places, children were believed to be untouched by the plague spirit, able to see things adults couldn't. Omens, warnings, invisible visitors. Some towns had children mark safe homes with symbols of light or birds. Others feared them as carriers of prophecy. At the edge of the square, you see a group of children dipping rags into pigment pots. Where they got those, you don't know, and humming as they work. They move quickly, methodically, like they've done this before. You ask what they're painting now. A girl says, "The saint." You blink. "Which one?" They don't answer. You wait. One of the children draws a circle. Inside it, a figure with a covered face and hands outstretched. Around the head, stars. Around the feet, bones. "She doesn't have a name," says another boy, "but she walks the streets at night." They glance toward the edge of town. You don't ask more. That evening, the red-veiled woman is leaning against your door. You hesitate. She doesn't speak. Just points to the mural of your house on the neighbour's wall. "Who drew that?" you ask. She shrugs. "Maybe it drew itself." You step around her, go inside. She doesn't follow. But when you look back, she's no longer there. You take out your candle, your vial of syrup, your pouch of dried fig bark. Then, for no reason at all, you find a piece of charcoal in the ashes and draw a circle on your floor. Inside it you sketch a bird, not flying, just watching. You sleep next to it. Not because you think it protects you, but because the children might know something you don't. They say a healer has come. You hear it from the apothecary's assistant first. She leans in while measuring dried thyme and whispers, "There's someone new in the marsh quarter. They say she doesn't carry herbs. She doesn't need to." You arch an eyebrow. Then what does she use? The assistant shrugs, pours the thyme into a pouch and mutters, "Touch." The word gives you pause. You don't believe it, but you want to. Everyone's desperate now. Even the tanner is praying out loud in the street. Loud enough that neighbours duck back indoors just to avoid being recruited into his impromptu sermons. It's like a fever of hope has gripped the town, nearly as contagious as the other one. You decide to see this healer for yourself. She's not where you expect her to be. Not in a clean room, not under candlelight. She's sitting on a crate in the middle of a dry garden near the abandoned weaver's shed. A circle of people surrounds her. Silent, tense, eyes locked. You hang back. She's older than you imagined. Not ageless, not beautiful. Weathered like a field worked too many seasons. Her hands are scarred. Her clothes are plain. No jewellery, no tools, just presence. A man steps forward. He's coughing, wet and rough, the kind that hurts just to hear. You can see the purple bloom under his collar. She says nothing. She reaches out and touches his forehead. And that's it. No chant, no blessing, no flashing lights or sudden collapse. She touches him, then lets go. He walks away, slowly, unsure, and the next person steps forward. You watch for over an hour. No one faints, no one instantly heals, but people come, and then they leave, with something different in their eyes. Not joy exactly, but relief. Like they've stopped holding their breath. You finally step forward. You're not sick, not visibly, but something in you needs to know. She looks at you, then at your hand, still clutching the feather. She places her palm lightly on your chest, just over your sternum. It's warm, that's all. But for a moment, you remember the last time someone touched you just to comfort you. Not since the midwives left. Not since your mother's lullabies. You hadn't even realized how badly you needed it. She removes her hand. You exhale. Here's your mainstream fact. Folk healers during the plague often relied on rituals and personal presence more than medicine. Some believed in laying of hands to restore balance. Others were considered divine conduits. A few were executed for witchcraft. You want to ask her name, but she's already turning away, speaking to a girl with a trembling jaw and one shoe. You return home in silence. On the way, you see 3 new red cloths hanging, and 1 white one. The white means someone recovered, or someone gave up marking the house. That evening, a knock at your door. You open it slowly. No one there, just a sprig of thyme, and your feather tied to it with a piece of red thread. You bring it inside, place it on your windowsill like a shrine. Your cat immediately sniffs it, sneezes, and walks away. Even she seems tired of mystery. Here's your fringe tidbit. Some believed that in times of great sickness, unnamed saints would appear. No halo, no miracles, just presence. They didn't speak. They only moved from town to town, touching the sick. Those they helped sometimes lived, sometimes didn't. But the fear faded either way. You lie down early. Not because you're exhausted, but because you want to hold on to that warmth a little longer. You dream of hands, gentle ones, lifting weights off your chest, placing feathers in your palm. You don't want to wake up. Not yet. Because sometimes the cure isn't about the sickness. Sometimes it's just being seen. The air is still. Not just quiet. Still. Like the wind forgot how to move. Like the trees are listening for something that hasn't happened yet. You wake late, no birdsong, but you've stopped expecting that. What's strange is the absence of everything else. No coughing, no dogs barking, no bells. You step outside and the street is empty. Not quiet, empty. Even the rats seem to have taken the day off. Your neighbour's window is open. That's never happened before. You lean in, call softly. No answer. The red cloth is gone. You check another house, and another. Doors left ajar, meals half eaten. A scarf still drying on a line. Everyone's gone. No signs of struggle, no fresh burials, no marks. Just a town suddenly 1 layer thinner. You return to the square. You're not alone there. A few others have emerged too, maybe half a dozen, all wearing the same bewildered expression. A woman in a faded shawl says, "I didn't hear the coughing last night." A man answers, "My baby slept straight through till dawn." Someone else mutters, "Maybe it's over." But you know it's not that. It doesn't feel like survival. It feels like forgetting, as if something has been removed, not cured, not defeated, but erased. Here's your mainstream fact. In the wake of plague waves, towns often experience sudden, eerie lulls. Mortality rates dropped not because the plague ended, but because it had burned through its fuel. The silence that followed was not relief. It was emptiness. You wander. A child's ball rests in the middle of a lane, unmoving. No laughter, no footsteps. Oh, you find the old merchant's cat asleep in a cart. You try to pet her. She hisses and bolts. You reach the docks and see the ship again. Still in the marsh. Still impossibly inland. But now, listing, half sunken. The mast snapped. A single sail flapping weakly in the breeze. It should bring comfort, decay, end of threat. But the moment you look away, you hear it. A bell. Faint. In your head or far away. You can't tell anymore. You sit on the edge of the dock and watch the reeds. Here's your fringe tidbit. There were rumours in medieval port towns that certain ships, once claimed by plague, would ring their own bells long after they sank. That underwater, in the dark silt, the rope still moved. By evening, the red-veiled woman stands in the square. No veil now. Just a face lined with something deeper than years. She doesn't speak. She looks at you, and you understand. It's not that the plague is gone. It's just quiet, like fire after the last log burns. Like a song that stops mid-note and leaves you waiting. Back at home, your cat curls against your chest, heavier than usual. You feel her heartbeat. It reminds you that yours is still going too. You light the last of your candles. The walls flicker. so do your thoughts. You think about the boy's mural, the one where you held the feather and the bell floated above your door. You wonder if you're part of a story now. One of the drawings the children made, a story that no longer ends with death, but doesn't promise life either. You sleep finally, and this time, no dreams, just the sound of nothing, which might be the most terrifying sound of all. The breeze changes. It's the first thing you notice when you wake, before the light, before the cat, before your own body decides what aches and what doesn't. The air moves again, softly, from the west this time, cool, not damp. It carries the scent of pine bark and distant smoke, but not the thick, oily reek of sickness. Not anymore. You rise slowly, carefully, like someone stepping into a world they no longer trust. Outside, the street looks familiar, still dusted with ash, still empty in places where it shouldn't be. But the silence has changed its tone. It's no longer suffocating, it's waiting. You walk the block. Someone's washing a blanket in a basin. A candle burns in a windowsill. A baby cries, quietly, uncertainly, like it hasn't yet decided how loud life is supposed to be. You see more white cloth today than red. You count 5. One is on the apothecary's door, another on the old mason's shutters. Even the inn has opened a single window. The breeze pushes the curtain outward, and for the first time in weeks, it dances. You pass the fountain. Someone's drawn a circle around it in chalk. Inside it, flowers. Real ones. They weren't there yesterday. You find yourself by the church. The tower bell, scorched and cracked, now hangs silently, like it's resting. A new drawing has been added to the church wall, simple, hasty, maybe done with berry juice. A bird, wings out, not flying, just hovering. Beneath it, a feather. You feel for yours, still in your pouch, safe. Here's your mainstream fact. After plague waves, many towns did not celebrate recovery. There were no fireworks, no banners, just slow, hesitant returns, markets reopening, candles relit, songs sung in half-voice. Survival wasn't a victory, it was an inheritance. You reach the field near the abbey. Children are there again. They're not painting today. They're burying things, dolls, bits of red ribbon. One boy whispers a name over each object, then covers it with dirt. Funerals, a girl explains, for the parts we don't want to keep. You kneel and watch. She hands you a pebble. Yours? You think for a moment. Then you whisper, the bell, and place it in the soil. You walk back home under a sky that's lost its haze. Clouds drift, light, slow. The sun is gentle today, like it knows. Your cat is waiting on the step. She rubs against your leg, then sits beside you, blinking at the breeze. The red-veiled woman is gone. You haven't seen her since yesterday. Maybe she was never meant to stay. Here's your fringe tidbit. In some towns, when plague ended, survivors left food at the edge of the fields, for the dead, for spirits, for luck. Some planted herbs in the shape of crosses. Some never spoke of the sickness again. That night you sit by your window and light a candle. You don't expect miracles, you don't expect answers, but you watch the flame move in the wind, and for once it stays lit. The house no longer creaks like it's holding its breath. The air feels clean, the silence bearable. And when you finally close your eyes, you do so without bracing for a knock, or a bell, or the sound of footsteps that never quite reach your door. You dream of nothing, and wake to bird song. So now, the worst has passed. You're still here, somehow, in a world that held its breath and didn't let go until most had fallen quiet. You've seen too much, dug too many graves, watched the sky for signs that never came, and followed bells that led only to ash. But tonight, none of that is pressing. Tonight, you can let the stillness stretch. You can lie back and feel the weight of your own heartbeat, unhurried. You can remember faces, not the moment they left, but the ones before. Smiling, curious, full of all the messy, ordinary life that came before the sickness changed your town into a whisper. Let your breathing slow. Let your mind wander, gently, to the wind brushing your roof, to the flicker of your candle, to the distant song of a bird finding its voice again. No more coughs echoing down the alley. No more beaks watching from rooftops. No more bells. Just the hush of a world remembering how to sleep. And if you see someone in your dreams tonight, maybe in a red veil, or with a feather in hand. Tell them you remember. Tell them you still feel the warmth of that silent, stubborn hope. You made it to the end, you survived the first rumour, and the bell was not the last thing you heard. Now rest, deeply, softly, fully, because the worst part is over, and even if the world's not quite ready to begin again, you are. 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 You are.